Hello and welcome to the Litany of Catholic Martyrs for July 28th. As always, please pray for the families of those who were martyred on Easter Sunday in Sri Lanka. I offer this devotion as a way that we all can remember the martyrs, blood and red and white, blood and persecuted, each and every day. Through the church, through the blood of the martyrs, are the seat of the church, Father John Hardin, who should be a saint by now, has said so in many of his writings. Bishop Fulton Sheen, many great theologians, doctors of the church. Remember the martyrs, but for some reason, the clergy, bishops, cardinals, and priests, to a large degree, don't mention the martyrs. I believe they don't mention the martyrs because people don't want to hear about death and suffering and sacrifice. They want to hear about their iPhones and television and the movies and whatever else is going on in their lives. But we weren't put here for us. We were put here to serve God. I read a comment I was reading Fox News, and I read a comment, and people get confused about who Jesus Christ is. They think that he's different than God. They think that he is a separate entity, and so they dismiss the Old Testament. I know what it was about. It was about uh, what was it about? It was about the death penalty and how the Pope had taken it out and said that it's now a sin, but how the federal government had reinstated it. And someone had said that Christ was different than the Old Testament. And the fact of the matter is that Christ is the Word. Christ is the Word made flesh. And Christ was there as God breathed the Word and created everything. The Word created all things. If anybody reads Genesis, they have the phrase, the Word is in there all over the place. So, Christ and God and the Holy Spirit, they try and separate them because Christ is supposed to be all about love, and he is. He cares for us. But the fact of the matter is that we're supposed to love God more than anything else. And that's what being a martyr is, loving God before everything else. So when Pharaoh and all his soldiers were drowned in the Red Sea, Christ was there. And Jericho and all of that, Christ was there. And Joshua in Canaan, Christ was there. No matter what anybody else says, Christ was there. And so, but people don't want to hear that. They want to hide that. They want to think they want to do the Barney form of worship. I love you, you love me. Oh, how happy we can be. It's just not the way it is. So I remember these martyrs because they knew that that's not the way it was, and that's not the way it is, and that's not the way it'll ever be. Serving God is more important than our own lives. So I do this each and every day. Forget the cardinals, religious, bishops, priests, whatever, who don't mention this. I try and mention it each and every day, and if one person listens to this, you know what? If nobody listens to it, if Christ hears it, that's enough for me. So, for today's July 28th, these are the men, women, and children who suffered and died gladly, sacrificed their lives for the love of this church. At Rome, the martyrdom of St. Victor, who was a pope and a martyr. Also at Rome, St. Innocent, pope and confessor. There's two popes right there, slaughtered for love of the church. At Milan, the birthday of the holy martyrs Nasarius and a boy named Celsus, while the persecution excited by Nero was raging. They were beheaded, but by Anolinus after long sufferings and afflictions they endured in prison. In Tobai, in Egypt, the commemoration of many holy martyrs who suffered in the persecution of Decius and Valerian, at this time when Christians sought death by the sword for the name of Christ. The crafty enemy devised certain slow torments to put them to death. wishing much more to kill their souls, as if he could kill their souls rather than their bodies. One of these Christians, after suffering the torture of the rack, of hot metal plates and of seething oil, was smeared with honey and exposed in the broiling heat of the sun, with his hands tied behind him, to the stings of wasps and flies. Another was bound and laid among flowers when a shameless woman approached him with the intention of exciting his passions. He bit off his tongue and spit it in her face. These are tough. These guys are tough. At Ancyra in Galatia, the holy martyr Eustathius, after various torments, he was plunged into a river, but being delivered by an angel, was finally called to his reward by a dove coming from heaven. At Miletus, in the time of the Emperor Licinus, the holy martyr Acacius, who completed his martyrdom by having his head struck off after having undergone different torments and been thrown into a furnace, from which he came out uninjured through the assistance of God. At Petrania, St. Samson, bishop and confessor, and finally, at Leons and Peregrinos, St. Peregrinos, priest, whose happiness in heaven is attested by many glorious miracles. These are the men, women, and children we are to remember today, to emulate, be like them. Hopefully, when I'm faced with, if I was be faced with these kinds of things, I'd probably fold like a cheap suit. If I depended upon myself, but only through the mercy and strength of God, through the power of God, can we be like the Catholics are supposed to be. God bless each and every one of you, and thank you for listening this morning.